kept trying to jump on here live and do this in landscape mode, but for whatever reason this thing is stuck on portrait mode. I have a feeling that either the phone or the YouTube app needs to be updated, and I quite frankly don't have time to figure that out. So what I'm doing right now is I'm working on some wide blades that were sent to me by a groomer. They had been sharpened by another fellow, and none of the blades would actually work. They were jamming on her. I had her send them to me. And when I got them in, what I did was I made sure that I did a test on them. One, check to make sure that there weren't any broken blades. Two, make sure that there wasn't an issue with anything like the clipper, because often that can be the case, because there's 14 blades here total, and typically a mistake is not made 14 times. But in this particular case, it was. And there was some reasons why that actually happened. So we'll go into that in just a moment. I'm going to crack a few of these off, and then we'll see if we can show some examples of why there was an issue with these blades. The main thing that was going on is there was obviously some heat flare that was done, which meant that the edges had curled up. So when the sharpening took place, they were just either pressed down on too hard, possibly like one situation. It could also be that the plate was worn as well. Because after this happened, the other sharpener sent this plate in to have it worked on. So that may very well have been part of the problem as well. Once I'm done with this and recharge this plate, we'll go ahead and show a couple of examples of what's going on. And again, sorry for the portrait mode. This one right here, you can actually see that it does not have any contact on the outside edge of the blade. Now, well, you can see that in the video. But right here, that's a definite issue where you're not getting a cut all the way across. So I have to sharpen that one more time. If there's any questions that anyone has as they've popped in, they're welcome to ask. I'm going to go ahead and sharpen this comb one more time. All right, got a few people saying hey, hello there. Right now I'm working on some blades that were sent to me by a groomer. The sharpener that she had used had some issues either with their plate or possibly with some heat problems as well. That may have been generated because they weren't getting good results off of the plate. Because these edges on these wide blades are actually, they're flared, so they're heat flared. And I'll see if I can grab the camera in a minute or two and show what I mean by that to make that a little more clear. All right. This is the Shop Automatic machine. The way that I'm actually charging this plate is not the manufacturer's recommended way to do it. You have to have a very light hand if you're going to do it this way, because you can mess up the plate. You can actually smooth it out too much. And I apologize that we're in portrait mode as opposed to landscape. I have a feeling I need to update the app on the phone. And I just simply don't have time to do that. So we'll deal with portrait. Makes it a little easier for me, and hopefully everything is not reversed as well. I apologize if that's the case. A lot of times when I'm filming in this and I'm actually using the front camera, everything will be backwards. So just keep that in mind as you watch this. but I figured some explanations as we go might actually help. Make sure that's embedded in there. I'm going to go ahead and run this comb and cutter. In particular, my main concern is going to be the comb at the moment. Cutter would be too. I'm going to make a quick pass across, take a look and see. What's happening on this here. And let's see if I can turn this around. I might be able to turn it around while we're doing this live. Let's see. Yes, excellent. All right, let me see if we can see this in the video. I don't know if you can see this, but you can see it more on the bottom rail where you can see that the middle is being hit, but the outer edges are not, which means that these had flared up and then settled back down while sharpening was done, which either was a problem with the plate, like so the plate was just severely worn, or more than likely heat, or a combination of both. So we'll have to do something with this until we actually finish. Getting these completed. So we'll drop that back down, let that run through. Hello, Lynn. Any others that have questions of what I'm doing, please feel free to ask. Let me take a look at this. Yeah, you can see here where now we actually have a clean cut all the way across the blade, all the way across the bottom. Let's see if we can get a decent shot of that. Doing it white light as well. It's so hard to shoot stainless steel. But there's a nice clean cut now all the way across where it's not missing on the outsides. That should solve the problem. These blades were jamming in the cut. So that was the majority of the problem. Let me see if I can get an example of that jam that was going on. Put this in right here. This will be a little crooked. So bear with me for a moment. While we do this, go. See if you can see what I mean by it was jamming when we were testing. So I'm going to just grab one of these blades, put this on here, and go through. It drags really bad on this one here. Let me grab one more. And that one's really jamming right there. So they were either dragging real hard or they were jamming up where they would not go through the fur at all. So we'll see if we can get that corrected. All right, drop this in here. Taking a good look at the cutter as well. And I'm going to go ahead and just making sure that if there's anything between the teeth on the blades, that we get that cleaned off. If you have any questions, please just shoot me a little note here in the comments section on what I'm doing. But I'm correcting work on some wide blades. This was from another sharpener in my home state. For the sake of the video, I'm not wearing a mask. Typically when I am working, I am always wearing a mask of some kind. Very important to make sure that you protect yourself as much as you can. But just for clarity, if anybody has questions, I'll probably keep the mask on until I see a few questions pop up. Hopefully you can hear me clear enough through the mask. All right, that one cut in fine. Do the same thing with the next one. You can also see that there were some contact issues as well, the back side of the blade when it was touched. You can see it got touched first, which, you know, I'd rather see somebody hit on the back and then drop the blade down onto a plate if they're doing it freehand, than touch the tips down first and then drop down, because that's going to do nothing but screw the tips up, especially on the cutter. Take these final two blades apart. And again, sorry for the orientation. Let me know if you all have any questions. All right, this one actually has a bad tooth. Let me see if I can catch this in the light. There it is right there. It's right in this area right here. We'll see if we can catch it in the light. It's actually just where it's like a worn spot, and I'm gonna have to sharpen past that, or get pretty close to at least past it. For sure, I want to get up to the point where the cutter blades will be underneath it. But I'd like to get a clean cut all the way up to the very tip. This is one of the issues too when you're doing repair sharpening, where you can run into some issues. It takes a little bit longer a lot of times. If you would, one or two of you sound off in the comments, just say hello, because I want to see if comments are actually working. I'm going to hit this. Well, before I do that, let me do this. Flip this around. I'm going to show what's happening here. There we go. On that one tooth, you can actually see that that tooth is rounded back right there in that one little spot. So I either need to sharpen past that, or I need to sharpen it up enough to where I don't have to worry about that anymore. I can actually put the teeth of the cutter up underneath that where the problem is. So I'm going to run it one more time. I also don't want to take more life off of the blade than I absolutely need to as well. And if you would, say hello in the comments section if you're here. All right, that's just about all the way up to the top, so that's going to be good. I'm going to go ahead and recharge this plate. Do another round of blades. On the wide blades, I typically do them 3 at a time. In this case, on one of them, I'm going to do 4. I know, well, you can hear me with this thing on. I'm going to take it off. Again, normally what I'm going to do whenever I'm working is I want to make sure I'm wearing a mask. Always protect yourself. So the question was, do I use the big red anymore? And yes, I do have the big red. The big red is actually on the other side of the machine over here. I mean, of the van over here. I use the automatic mainly now, but that's because of a lot of hand pain that I have. I've hit a point where my business has grown so much, and the amount of time that I'm having to put in, anything that I can do where I can get a machine to do the work for me, I'm trying to do. Just like when I put these blades back together, you'll see me put them back together with Mitch's jig. And the reason I do that is and once you train yourself how to use the jig, it actually moves very quickly. It'll fail every once in a while, like not every blade goes together as perfectly as we want. And that's fine. I just do it by hand, and then you can actually see where this has been contacted in the back by the previous sharpener. Again, that's not really an issue other than just unsightliness, and that happens. Again, you're better off ear to the back than you are up at the tips. But yes, I do still use my CS201, which is the Red Nebraska Blades machine. Excellent machine. It's just this helps to save my hands. So hopefully that answers your question, Adam. Let me know if you have any other questions while we're at it. What I'm doing right now is I'm wiping down parts. If you go back and review this live later, you'll actually see where what's happening with these blades is when I put them down on the plate, it's making contact with the center of the blades, but not the outside of the blade, which usually either means that the plate had gone bad and or too much pressure is being used and it's creating heat issues on the blade. This one looks like it was used just a little bit more, but it was not used excessively before it started jamming up. Some of the blades were actually functioning a little, but they were dragging was part of the problem as well. So we need to straighten that out and make sure that we have proper orientation on the inside. The blades have to be properly hollow ground, and actually hollow grinding the blades properly is important. All of these plates have a taper to them so that it's higher in the center than it is on the outside, so there's a slight curvature along the plate, which actually creates a slight curve on the inside so that when the blades rub together, the tips are touching and they kind of wear in. Makes them cut much better, so they really do need to be hollow ground. Let me know if any of you have any other questions. Also, there are some jigs and other pieces that you can use on this machine for the wide blades that tend to disperse the pressure that goes down onto the blades. Because the machine, the heads are designed for your regular A5 style type blades. And there's an attachment that goes underneath, in particular on the cutter, which can help with spreading the pressure out across the blade, which works perfectly fine. I don't use it because I recharge every 3 blades, so I usually have very fresh grit. I haven't seen any adverse cutting action and or hollow grind action or issues that can come up with actually not using that piece that's made. But by all means, if you ever decide to get a machine like this, make sure that you watch the videos. They're very comprehensive, and they tell you all the different pieces that you can use for doing different applications. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. It's like a chat there. that question regarding the Nebraska Blades machine, the red Nebraska Blades. Better hit that one more time again too, because again didn't come all the way across. Adding just a little bit of tension to my blades as well. Any questions that you have, please let me know. There we go. And there we go. All right. Let's do the final 3 of the 14. Again, any questions that you have, please let me know. You can do that in the comments section. What I'm doing at the moment is just correcting some improperly sharpened blades. I'm adding a slight bit of tension to the springs. I can always release a little bit of the tension if I need to. But it's just a smidge that I'm doing, because remember, I am actually taking metal off when I do this. I just did a count of my blades as well. I keep a running counter to know how many blades I've done on one side. Typically on a plate, I'll do about 1,000 blades on each side, and I flip it whenever it reaches the 1,000 blade mark. All right, anybody that has any questions, let me know. There's a chat down on the bottom where you can actually say hello. Let me know if you have any questions regarding anything that I'm doing. Again, I'm just doing some corrective sharpening on some wide blades. A number of these wide blades have Andis springs on them. So I'm not really sure why that was done, other than maybe trying to make them cut, which is a possibility. So Tony, a silversmith, it looks like. Not sure what that comment means. Would you like to elaborate? That looks good. This was one of the ones that was jamming. Not jamming, but dragging really bad. I'm going to stop this one in the middle. as well, just to see what's going on with it. You can tell the ones that were dragging because they'll have some fur on them. The customer was trying to make them work, but couldn't. And again, some of these are Andis springs that are on these. I'm going to put them back together with the Andis springs on them. They should be fine. Any issues with the cut, we'll get them changed. All the parts on the different blades are interchangeable, so it really doesn't make a difference which of the springs are on the blades. That is one nice thing about our business, is we can interchange parts if we need to. Like for instance, regardless of what I'm doing, I always replace sockets with Andis sockets, because Andis sockets, and still in my opinion, are some of the best that are out on the market. That's just my opinion though. But I've had really good success with them, and they hold up well. There's numerous blades that you can buy online that from Amazon and places like that have very, very weak hardware. So the cheap blades, typically what you pay for is what you get. So keep that in mind. Anything that's a no-name blade is usually a problem. They really create some issues in the marketplace. When I sharpen those, all of the parts have to be replaced. Spring, sockets, blade guide, and let's lift this off. Let's see what's going on with this. Yep, again, so what's happening is it's making contact on the blade from here to here, but the outer edges are not being touched on the plate. So it's going to have to sharpen up until we actually get all the way across the top rail and bottom rails. So we'll drop that back on and let that continue. Let me know if there's any other questions. Right now I'm demagnetizing the blade. Just on a demagnetizer that's here in front of me. Go through. I'm going to start brushing some blades out. What I'm doing here, this allows me to deburr the blade, get it cleaned off. I can wipe down the mating parts of the blade before I put them back together. This one is still missing. Cutter should be fine. So we're going to pull the cutter off. Let's run that comb one more time. And that should solve that problem for that one. I'm not using a wire brush. I'm actually using just a bristle brush for doing the deburring. So don't think that this is soft. This is much softer than the blade. This is basically just to clean it out and to deburr. I always deburr my blades. There's a lot of people that don't, and that's fine if that's the way that you want to sharpen. Personally, I believe that you really do need to get rid of the burrs that are between the blades. But a lot of people will just demagnetize and just blow the blades off, put them back together, and away they go, and they work perfectly fine. I'm just a little bit, I don't know, overkill, I guess. But rather be safe than sorry. Burr removal is just, in my opinion, in all forms of sharpening, quite important. So if you don't remove the burrs properly on a shear, it creates a problem. If you have burrs that are between the blades, that's a problem. Because in between those teeth, if they fall in between the teeth, you can end up where you're actually tearing up the work that you just did. And I noticed that there was a comment too in Russian. Unfortunately, this thing does not do translation on the fly. So if you have a question and you can understand English, I'm happy to answer. I'm not sure if I can go back and look at these questions after the fact. So if I can, I'll see if I can get back and answer any questions that may come up as well. Brent, what time is it in the UK? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that was much love. That was from Joe. Up above. Joe, it's good to hear from you. Sorry about that, Brent. I apologize. I thought that your comment was from the UK. But Joe, it's good to hear from you. Hope that you're doing well. Are you still running around wearing your suit? And are you planning to come back to the States for any shows in 2026? Those questions are for Joe. Anyone else, too? The next upcoming show, by the way, is going to be the Above Edge show. It'll be in Las Vegas. If you go to aboveshears.com, you can find information for that show. I'll be at that show, training and teaching. More chimney sweeping than sharpening. I hear you. It was funny. I said to somebody today, they said, how'd you end up being a sharpener? I said, well, I failed as a chimney sweep, so I had to become a sharpener. I guess that's those old school businesses, right? Excellent. It'd be great to see you both if we're at one of the shows together. They have started a form of the NBTSG back up. It's now the NSG. So it's just been renamed. So right now what I'm doing is I'm wiping down the mating surfaces of the blade. So anywhere where the blades are going to touch on the inside, I wipe them down. Thanks, Joe. You have a great Christmas as well. So again, the back rail and front rail, I'm going to wipe these down. And again, if anybody has any questions, please let me know. So all these blades have now been sharpened, hopefully properly. We'll see. Maybe I'll be the one that gets them wrong this time. Very possible. What I'm doing right now is I'm marking the blade. So on the inside of the blade, what I do is I put a dot. I'm just going to put a dot right here on the inside of the blade so you can see the red dot that I put on there. Red is for December. So this way I know when I did the blade last. There's others that do similarly. So for example, this one cutter has dots on the inside here on the cutter blade. And this was more than likely, this is another sharpener that I know out in the industry. This was not the sharpener that did this work. But you can see that these have been sharpened at least a couple times. The two different colors typically signify a couple of different months. This one was only sharpened once. This one was only sharpened once before by that other customer, or by that other sharpener. And again, that sharpener that did those dots is not the one, because I asked the other sharpener if they marked their blades, and they don't. Is not the sharpener that actually did these. It's a mail order sharpener, and very good sharpener actually. If you have any questions, please let me know. This other fellow is fine as well. I have a feeling that the majority of the issue is with the plate. I think the plate got a little bit too worn. Once that happens, you're not going to get a proper hollow. And then if you're having to fight the blade to try and get it to do something as well, then you're going to end up putting more pressure. You put more pressure, and that creates the heat flare. And these wide blades are much more susceptible to heat flare. If you are doing freehand work, by the way, typically what I'll do is I'll use a wider magnet to do the work as opposed to one of the smaller magnets. Hang on a minute, let me whip this down. I'll grab both magnets. That way you have a comparison between the two. I'll use a wider magnet versus the smaller magnet, or so the large magnet instead of the small one, because it tends to go all the way across or much further across the blade, which helps with keeping even pressure, and that reduces, or at least it can help reduce edge flare as well from heat. Just be cautious with your pressure. About 1.5 pounds is what you should be using when you're putting pressure down on the plate to do the cut. If the cut is not happening, then more than likely what's happened is your blades, or your plate is either not charged properly, or sorry about that, switching my battery out here, or you have a worn plate. So, but if you're having to fight it, the more you fight it, then you have to put more pressure on it. So a lot of people will really try to shy away from doing a lot of work on these tools, and not get, end up generating more heat because they don't want to grit as often. I prefer to grit more often on the plate, because all that is just aluminum, and you're basically creating a piece of sandpaper on this. So anyway, that's just my opinion. And remember too, this is stuck in portrait mode. I have a feeling I need to update my app. I apologize. I just threw this on there because I figured I'm doing a correction. I'm at home. I'm done for the day with the actual mobile sharpening. So let's see if I can see. Yeah, you can see what I'm doing here with my jig. You can see where this was hit previously by the other sharpener. You can see the little red dot that I put on the blade. You can see that I'm putting my cutter on, oiling up the blade, doing my setback, making sure that looks good. This is a 30 blade, so you want it a little bit further forward. Lock that into place, drop that down. I'm gonna go ahead and grab drill and screw that screw in. Set at the lowest setting so when it tightens down, it doesn't just like tear right through the minor threads that they have in the sockets on these things. And then I'm going to look at my setback, which looks good. You want to make sure that your setback, your cutter blade should be back just a little bit shy of the thickness of a credit card on this one, because this is a 30. So we'll set that over to the side. Do another 30 here, or this might be a 10, I think. This one here. Your 30s, your 10s, and your 15s use one cutter blade, and then all the other blades use a different length cutter blade. The ones on the 30s, the 10s, and the 15s are a little bit wider across. Didn't do that right. Let's try that again. This snugs this down nicely, so you want to make sure that you get your setback set properly so you don't have to go back and do it again after you've put the blade together. Hopefully you can see all this stuff okay. I'm not very proficient at doing these kinds of shots live, but I do like to show you what I'm doing as I do this. So, and I can't see the camera right now while I'm doing this. So the setback on this looks good. The feel of the blade, I go mostly by feel, but you can test. There's a tool out. It's called the Sharp Edges blade scale. This thing is excellent. It's like a go no go scale, where what you want the blade to do is move somewhere in the green section of this. So, oops, I'm sorry. Let's see if I can move this over, and somewhere right around. Oop, slide that over again. Putting pressure on the spring. Oh goodness gracious. Hard to do on this. Typically when I'm doing it down on the counter. So when I do the pressure down on this, it starts to move right at about between the green and the yellow is where you want that to move. I test it by actual feel. When in doubt though, I go to that scale because the scale is excellent. It does a great job with helping me make sure that I know that I'm at about that 2.5 to 3.5 pounds of pressure. Typically on wide blades though, I tend to err more towards the heavier side. So I would prefer to be at about 3.5 pounds of pressure. That's my opinion on that. But I think that they cut better with a little bit more pressure. Again, because you have this wider cutter that's on here and you have just a regular spring that every other blade uses, it would be better actually if they designed these springs where they actually flared out so that they came further out along this cutter to actually put better pressure on the outsides of the cutter. That would actually lend in the cut, but the manufacturers have not chosen to do that. So, all right, that one did not stay in, didn't lock down completely, so I'm just going to go ahead and tighten that down just a little bit more. The screw head on that one was a little bit weak, so just wanted to make sure I gave it a little extra oomph. This is just to show you the speed that these things can go together when you're using this jig, which is an excellent jig in comparison to doing it freehand. So that's ready to go. Put that down. Lock that down. When I come off screen, all I'm doing is I'm just looking at my setback. And I'll see if I can show this here with the blade scale. Again, it's going to push somewhere right on the lower side. So this one's a little bit weak. And I don't want them to be too weak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of tension to this. And I'm going to use this tool right here, which is what is called a stat tool. It's spring tension adjustment tool. Stat. So what I'm doing is I'm just basically bending this down just a little bit, just to add just a tiny bit of tension. I want to do even on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and slip my cutter back in. So I'm just going to lift the spring up with my screwdriver, slide the cutter in, let that go, push that cutter over, And now I have a more snug, secure cutter. Although, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and adjust this just a second because one side is a little bit higher than the other. So we'll lock that back into place. That's almost there. I'm going to do it one more time. We'll tighten that down. And I'm actually going to take just a smidgen of tension back off now, too. Because in this case, when I added some tension to it, I actually made it with a little bit too much tension. So we'll just take a little bit of the tension off the spring, and that feels much better now. And now let's see if we can get it to move. Sorry about that. Let's try it again. Oh, no, took too much off. One of the frustrations with doing blades is if you do one thing, especially if you're trying to do it in front of video, it doesn't take much to make a mistake. So let's go ahead and tighten that down just a little bit. And then we're going to go to the other side. Tighten that down just a little bit. You can actually use the tool to lift this up as well. So we'll go up underneath. Slide that cutter back in. Now that tension feels a little bit better. You can see, oh, try again. You see that's moving right about in the center of the green right now. And that's about where I want it. I want it about in the center of the green before it moves on up to the top of the green. It can go into the yellow that's up above, and that'll work fine as well. Let me lift this up, see if there's any questions that are coming up. All right, so it says the blade assembly jig is fun to use. Yes, it is. It certainly is. It's saved, more so than fun to use. It's really saved my hands quite a bit. Again, I end up with a lot of hand pain just because of arthritis in my family and things. So, you know, in my mid-50s, what I'm trying to do is make sure that when I'm in my mid-60s, if I want to continue doing this type of work, I'm protecting my body as much as I can. So we should do everything that we can to protect our bodies. Again, I apologize for the portrait mode. And also, more than likely, this is reversed. I'm trying to do this in a quick manner where I can actually get on there. Trying to do this in a quick manner where I can go ahead and, you know, do a quick live video, especially since I'm home. I actually got done early for a change, which is nice. Although this past week was just outrageous. I got finished. I started about 8 o'clock and finished at about 9 o'clock on Tuesday, and on Wednesday I started at 8 o'clock and got home at 11 o'clock. So, but I was also about 2 hours from home too. So, but today was nice. Thursday was a Christmas party, so in the evening, so had to be home by 4 that day, so scheduled myself accordingly. But it's very easy in this business to mess up your schedule. I would say probably scheduling is one of the most difficult things that I do. Maintaining a good solid schedule where I don't fall behind during the time that I'm out. And if I do, I typically give myself buffer days. So I'll typically, whatever last day of the week that I'm working, I only schedule about a half day on that. So if I fall behind on the earlier part of the week, I can push things forward if I need to. And I'm very fortunate that I have very understanding clients that allow me to do that. It's very rare that I have to go back to an area locally. It's not that big of a deal, but when I'm working as far as a couple of hours away from home, I have to make sure that I do everything right and I'm able to get to everybody in a timely manner. So, not an easy thing to do. Are there any other questions that anybody has? Yeah. This is one of those situations. Here, let me drop the phone back down again. Show you what's going on with this and why this thing is sometimes an issue. Let me see if I can see under here. There's the jig. Okay, so you can see the jig being used here. When I try to put the screw in, the hole is not aligned as perfectly as I wanted it to. So this does happen with the jig from time to time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that screw. Oh, can't get that one to come out, so I'll grab the other one. I'm going to see if I can get the screw in the other side. Then I'll lift it up and I'll just put it together, but the holes are not aligned on either side. So I'm going to set the screws down, take the blade out, let that other screw fall out, and we'll put it together by hand. So I'm going to set that in, flip this over, align those screw holes, which can be a bugger when you're doing it freehand. I have a video on the YouTube channel that shows how to put these things together easily, doing it freehand. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just snugging these screws down. I'm not tightening. I'm going to do my setback. So I'll do my setback that I want to do on the blade, and I'm actually going to pull this off camera so I can do it under the magnifier. Much easier for me to do everything under the magnifier. I use magnifiers as much as I can, just to ease, for ease on my eyes, and also for the light as well. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and palm it. I'm going to snug and snug. I'm going to crank to tighten those screws down. I'll drop one side down just a little bit because I was a little bit overzealous. And they can move around on you just a little bit, so just keep that in mind. All right, so that's good. So that setback is back in shape. So the question was, does the jig allow for spring tension adjustment, or do you do that via vice grips? I use Dennis Brooks's tools. So this is for adding some tension to the springs. This is for adjusting the sockets, which both of them are great tools. And then I do use the stat tool as well, where if the blade is together and I want to add some tension. And if I take tension off of a blade, I just use a regular screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, to take the tension off of the blade. So, but no, the jig itself does not allow for tension adjustments. Now there is a new tool that Mitch has made from the shop where it does, you can actually leave the piece in the jig, test it while it's actually tightened up. And if it's not strong enough, you can pull the cutter out and you can use this little tool, and it just connects onto the side of the spring while it's in the fixture, and you can actually bend it down or add some tension that way. He's in the process of actually sending one of those to me for me to play with. One of my students was talking to Mitch the other day, and Mitch just said, hey, I heard that you were interested in the tool, so he wants me to test it, play with it, and see if there's any improvements that can be done on it. But honestly, I think the way these designed it works really well. I saw a video of how he actually does it, and it's a great little tool. So Samuel, I don't know if that answers your questions or not. Any other questions that anyone has, I'm happy to answer. Again, the whole purpose in doing this is we had some wide blades that were having some problems after being sharpened. So the sharpener had asked me to try and see if I could fix them for the customer. We're going to see if that actually worked. I do try to be as prudent and professional and consistent as a sharpener as I can be, but we all make mistakes and we all have failures. I've had a few failures this year on some curved thinning shears. Now, there's a lot of times where you end up with curved thinning shears where just the metal is not that great, so they don't hold up very well. So almost no matter what you do, you're going to have problems. Then I typically, I typically end up where you want to make sure that you're using a tool like, let me see if I can get that unit out of there. This right here, this is the Easy Rider for doing the work, and you can actually flatten it out. And I create usually a much bigger ride line on the shears that have very weak metal on them, just to see if you can get them to hold up a little bit better. You know, the industry is not perfect. Beauty or grooming, And scissors, all of them that are manufactured now are not manufactured as well as they used to be, at least in my opinion, in the past. But there's some that are better than others. That's why I sell certain brands and rep certain brands as well. So if anybody's ever interested in knowing what I rep and how I help sharpeners make money, I'm happy to, answer questions on that as well. You can find me all over the place online. If you look at some of my other videos, you'll find my email and you'll find phone numbers and other things like that where you can get in touch with me. Oops. Okay, we'll look at that in a second. Argentina, welcome. Glad that you're here with us. Ooh, that didn't work out too well. That screw went in crooked. Again, jig's not perfect. There's nothing perfect in the industry. But it does help a lot with me for, like I said, pain with my hands. So very appreciative. Let's see. Mitch is quite amazing. I have my Traco. Oh, I had my Traco 3000 wheel CBN coated by him. Yes, I do have one of his CBN wheels. I don't sharpen the... Really? All right, I'm gonna have to change the socket on this one. The socket is blown out on this. That's why I'm struggling so much with this one. So no point in banging my head against the wall here. I'm gonna change the socket and the screws out in this one. Always make sure that you keep some additional parts. You will need them. Spring should be fine. Put a new socket in. When you put the socket goes up straight in like this here and then pull back. That'll set it into place. Just putting this back into the jig. Locking this down. Sorry for some of the background noise as well. I'm working with the door open in the van because it's actually very nice out today. We're getting ready to have another cold snap here though in the south. What we say is cold anyway. But no, I don't sharpen the ceramic cutters because I don't trust them. I replace them. I'll either replace them with steel if the customer will allow, or if they want ceramic cutters, I replace them with ceramic cutters. And I don't like to sharpen the ceramics because the ceramic is so brittle. It can chip out. Hello, Eileen. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here. Again, if anyone has any questions, let me know. Eileen, I hope business is going well. It's been a little while since we've spoken. Again, any questions that you have, please feel free to ask. And I'm just doing some repair work on these wide blades. They were sharpened on a proper machine. Just either the plate was worn or too much pressure was used or both, because these looked like they were heat flared as well. Wide blades can have that happen if you put too much pressure. Wonderful to hear that you're busy, Eileen. I'm in the same boat. Come on now. go. That took a second. All right, and what I'm doing right now is I'm just continuing to put this together with the jig. This one is too tight. This one's hardly moving. So we're going to take some tension off of this blade. So a lot of times when people sharpen and the blade is not cutting like it's supposed to, what they try and do is over tension the blade to try and force a cut. On occasion you might get by with the blade cutting some, but what ends up happening then is now you're overtaxing the clipper. So you're either wearing out the motor, wearing out the hinge, not the hinge, but the blade guide or lever, or both, usually both. So that'll come back and bite you as well. This one was way, way over tightened. This isn't just because I added some tension to this. This was just ridiculous, the amount of tension that's on this one here. So what I'm doing is I'm releasing that tension with my screwdriver. I'm not paying attention to this as much as I should just because I'm trying to film this. Let me drop this down here so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and do this here. Lift that up and lift up on the other side. Wow, that was really, really tight. Still too tight. That gum. There we go. Yeah, that was a bit much, so it happens. Yeah, assembling blades, boy, it can be a pip sometimes, but that's okay. It's all part of the fun. Most of what I do just to keep myself entertained during the day is I try to do speed drills and things like that to see how fast I can do things. Not foolishly. You know, again, you're always better off working a little bit slower if you need to. I'd rather take a little bit more time and not make mistakes than try and go too fast for absolutely no reason. The money will be there. I mean, dollars-wise, come on. Nope, that hole's off. So one side on this one was off just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, doing anything with the blades can be a bit of a pain when you're putting them together. But it's once you get proficient at doing it, you can start having speed time trials with yourself and see how fast you're working or not working. And, you know, it's just something to do during the day to keep your mind off of the monotony that this can become. Because once you've done this for a while, it actually gets to where not a lot of thought needs to go into this. But you should always make sure you're paying attention, because just like driving, you start making mistakes when you're not actually paying attention to what you're doing. So try not to become, you know, there's that whole conscious competent versus unconscious competent. After you've done this for several years, you become unconscious competent in doing it. But that's when you can either hurt yourself or make some mistakes. So make sure you're paying attention to what you're doing. You should never get so comfortable that you start getting lazy with paying attention to the work that you're doing. Any other questions? I'm going to test these in just a minute. See if they actually work. And again, I apologize if this is reversed. It may very well be. I tried several times to get the phone where the portrait mode would unlock, but I really think that it's just an update issue. So hopefully next time. And if this turns out that it doesn't come out right for, you know, putting up or leaving up as a video, we'll just take it down. But gave me a chance to say hello to a few. We live very lonely, isolated lives, we sharpeners. So it's nice every once in a while to get in front of friends. All right, putting the last blade together. Let's see if you can see the testing that I'm doing here. Looks like you can. Sorry for the box. Sorry for all the garbage that's all over the place too. I'm gonna set that aside. I'm gonna grab another piece of my fake fur. Let's brush this out. You always want to make sure that your fake fur is brushed out. And I'm going to test some of the blades. So hopefully these cut through without a problem now. Where they were jamming up before, now it's a nice clean cut, right straight through. Same thing. I test my wider blades or thicker blades. It's like I'm testing a 4 right now. Then I'll go to a 5. Then I'll go to things like 7s. Because I want to utilize as much of the length of the hair as I can on each one of the tests. That's cutting good. I'm going to start walking my way down the blades. This is a 7. Nice clean cut. Another 7. I'm sorry, that was a 5. This one's a 5. The ones I tested before were 4s. That's a nice clean cut. Same thing here. Nice clean cut. That was a 5. Now we're down to our 10s and our 30s. Going to do the 30 test. That's cutting nicely. I believe this is a 10. Yep, it's a 10. Looks like it's a mixture of Zolita blades and AGS blades. It's a 30. Nice clean cut. Merry Christmas to you as well. And a Happy New Year. Again, nice clean cut. Here. Get rid of that fur. Gonna blow these off. If there's any other questions, let me know. Once I'm done, once I'm done wiping these off, or blowing these off, I wipe them down. And then I'll package them back up. You have any last minute questions for me before I hop off? Thank you all for those that kind of stuck around. But these again were some wide blades that were improperly sharpened. I have a feeling that there's a good portion of it was an issue with the plate on the machine. because we discussed it and the plate has gone back to be reworked. It also may have been some frustration because the plate wasn't working as well as it should, which led to some additional pressure when doing the sharpening, which you should always be cautious of doing. Get rid of a part. The only reason I say that is that when we're frustrated, we tend to try to force. When we try to force, that creates problems. That's going to create heat. So you're almost better off just, setting it aside, or sending it somewhere else. So that can happen sometimes. So just be aware of that. I think the majority of this, though, is the plate, and then maybe, again, like I said, a little bit of frustration that went in along with it. Because normally there's not an issue for this fellow. I think this was just kind of a fluky thing. So, all right, I'm going to start packing stuff up. Resecuring my machines. Whenever I'm going down the road, I always make sure that I get my machine locked back up. I have a piece of styrofoam here that I use to set up underneath this little plate here that's on the machine. The reason I do that is it holds it up. There's actually a little tab that's on there that triggers a mechanism that actually allows the heads to go back and forth. So I always like to protect that when I'm out riding. And then just storing everything up, making sure that all the cabinets are locked down, so when I get ready to pull out, I don't have stuff flying open and falling out when I'm going down the road. So I'll go ahead and put this back up. Put this here, there, and I think we're done at this point. So again, unless there's any last minute questions, I'm gonna go ahead and hop off. Hopefully this was a help, but again, wide blades can be a pip, but only if you let them be. So remember, let the machine do the work. Always make sure that that thing is actually properly, make sure that the machine is properly charged, so you don't have overheating problems, and always make sure that you're maintaining your plate, because man, a plate will come back and bite you right in your backside faster than you can say 1, 2, 3 real quick. So make sure that you actually are keeping that thing properly dressed so that you get a good cut on the blades. And a counter, quite frankly, will help that. So if you don't have a counter, make sure you get one. All right, appreciate y'all, and hope you all have a great day. Oh, Merry Christmas. It's December 12th, 2025 while we're doing this. So Merry Christmas to you and Happy New Year. And then, like I've been saying to some of my customers, just in case I don't go live again, we'll see you next year.